Greetings, listeners! This is June of 2019, and welcome to episode number 2 of the Underground Book Club, where we discuss free, self-published books that we uncover in the depths of the internet. I'm Jake.
And I'm Chris. Today we are going to be discussing Children of Legend, a Templar Order in Chaos Extra by Kenneth Brooks. Our episode will cover topics such as repeating yourself, dialogue, and repeating yourself.
To start us off, please again note that we are still working out the kinks to the show, and we apologize for any lack of pacing, editing, audio quality, audio in general. We fixed the popping. I know that we fixed the popping.
We figured that out, so that will not be a problem
Thank
anymore.
goodness. So with that said, we have some wonderful fan submissions. For our first episode, we asked our audience to write a sentence or two that described the most dazzling outfit they've ever seen, and they did not disappoint.
You can find all of these outfits in our storefront. I'm kidding. We don't have merch.
No, we don't have any merchandise.
We don't have any merch yet.
I'd love for us to get some t-shirts or something. We usually are going to be discussing works that warrant critical discussion. Stories that could use polish, changes, edits, and such.
Stories that help us make a point.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And then we give some good examples.
Exactly. We have to comb through a lot of options that we find online for a story that's most suited for a whole episode. Some works are simply too bizarre, too long, or really weird and mysterious to devote an entire episode toward, such as Tricolored Cats by, Ilya Milyukov? It's
let
Russian.
me see that. It's Russian. I think it's Ilya Milyukov.
Wow, cool.
The thing with Tricolored Cats was it was very long, but it was like a book that had been written in Russian.
Yeah.
And then put through Google Translate to English with no finessing at all, and it was very strange.
Yeah, and so Tricolored Cats, it's like, it was funny, but there wasn't a lot we could teach about it because we don't know anything about Russian.
And after a while, it became difficult to read. It was just so...
Yeah, it's very incomprehensible.
Such a mess.
And also Tricolored Cats, it was so long. It was so long.
Yeah, it was a really long story.
And then, of course, there was The Devil's Spinner by Trent Brodsky.
Here's the deal with The Devil's Spinner. On Trent Brodsky's author page, I don't know if this is true. You assume people are telling the truth. That he's like emotionally impaired.
Okay.
And that he writes in order to explore the fact that he's emotionally impaired.
Right.
So talking about that book, I felt real funny about it. Like
same.
It would be like making fun of somebody with glasses or something. Then we also found a book, and it was called
our actual recommendation.
Yeah, this was called the Haunted High series. This was book 1, The Wolf Within Me, and it's written by a lady named Sherry Alsop. So Jake wanted to find books about high schools or magical schools, like Harry Potter knockoffs, and that's where I found the Haunted High series. It's about a boy who has to go to a magical school because he discovers that he is a werewolf after like barely surviving a horrible car crash.
That was awful, yeah.
And one of his friends dies in the crash, so he has to go to like a special school for monsters.
Right. He lives in the modern world, and so people have taken footage of him with cell phones and stuff.
Yeah.
He's a werewolf.
Like he goes into hiding.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's very well written.
We barely passed the first chapter before we realized that the author definitely knew what she was doing.
Yeah, she's good. She's quite good. She had some...
It's paced very well.
Yeah, it had some really beautiful turns of phrase and stuff in it, too, so...
There's not much to discuss.
Right. So, Sherry Alsop, she's published a lot of books. Interesting thing, she's published a lot of book 1s.
Oh!
Like, she's got 5 books on Smashwords that are like book 1 of a series.
Okay.
And then I never see a book 2, so I don't know if her book 2s
maybe she's doing it like the Netflix Marvel series.
Oh my God.
Where she's like season 1s, and then she goes back and does season 2 of everything. Yeah, exactly.
Well, anyway, she seems to know what she's doing, so...
We're recommending it as a great example of a fun premise. A positive example.
Before we get into our book for the day, I just wanted to take a moment and fill in a little information from the last episode.
Okay.
I felt a little bad. I've been editing I've been editing all week, and aside from some of our own personal issues that we need to fix.
Yeah.
Hey, we didn't promise we were perfect.
It's episode 1.
Yeah, episode 1. I feel like we were a little hard on Philip Benj.
We mentioned at the beginning that this is a non-toxic show. We talk about the works and not the person.
And I don't want to make it feel like we were like ragging on Philip Benj.
Philip Benj, he's a writing machine.
Yeah,
that
he
dude,
puts out a lot of stuff. We have nothing. The fact that we found ourselves a little puzzled by his book is like really not. It just made a good example to me of a book where I thought the detail was voluminous where it didn't need to be.
I think we mentioned that in our first episode, but we want to reiterate that this is about the works, not the author. If we ever seem critical, it's about the work.
Yeah, he probably gets better with everything he writes.
That's with me. I get better with everything I write.
I agree.
Practice makes better. Speaking of authors,
yes.
In fact, Chris, please tell us a little about today's author.
Well, today we're only going to talk about one book because part of the reason why I feel like we shortchanged Philip Benj is because we tried to cram 2 books into one show.
Yeah, and so I think from now on we'll just do one book an episode.
We're going to stick with one, and this week...
But that way we'll be able to really dig into the books.
Boy, are we going to dig in.
Yeah, boy, how are we?
Okay. Kenneth Brooks. Kenneth Brooks is our author. He is the author of a series, Templar, Order and Chaos.
Kenneth dedicates the first page of his book to a big special thanks, where he lists many people that helped him out during his writing process. Then he talks about someone he knows as Dr. Thelma Bear, who, quote, recognized my writing problems in the past and urged me to write what I drew and what I thought.
I think the reason Jake shared that is because we agree with Dr. Bear. We encourage writers to practice and continue their craft and work out the kinks just like we're doing. And we're here to help by offering constructive criticism.
Okay. You might be confused by the subtitle of the book, A Templar, Order and Chaos Extra? Well, here's what's going on with that. Kenneth Brooks has a ton of other books in what he calls the Battle-Scarred Universe. Books about legendary people. Templar is one of them. So, literally, this is a side story about previously established main characters training when they were younger. It's like if there was a prequel to The Lord of the Rings that went into Aragorn and Boromir's wacky college life.
I would read that.
Let's see. Go right ahead with that next part there.
Well, I don't quite know how because I'm supposed to ask for a plot synopsis,
right.
But since this book doesn't exactly have a plot,
it doesn't really have a traditional plot in the way you think
There's no story here.
Exactly.
There's no conflict. It's a succession of training montages. Sean is a psychic. Angela is a shaman. The book mostly focuses on the 2 of them and how they learn nifty new ways to use and control their powers.
That's the extent of it. That's it.
And it starts on an extremely odd scene. And then it ends on a very random scene, and there's really not anything resolved.
There's no resolution or nothing. It's just an extra.
What could be resolved? I mean, there's nothing to resolve.
I guess like Sean being hunted in the world by people who fear psychics and whatnot, and what's going on with Mentor and whatnot. All right, everyone. I'm going to read a passage from the book. This is going to be our main character, Sean, speaking, and I'm going to be reading him in my normal voice.
Here goes Jake reading in a regular voice what Sean is saying.
I know they are my family, and I am related to them, but they hardly associate with us. You and Ben are practically the only people we visit on anything approaching a regular basis. That might be because aside from the grandparents, you are close, and we visit on weekends and the like. You also come back early from vacations in the summer. We aren't rich like the rest of the family, so we don't get to fly around to a lot of different places all the time. I don't recall ever being on an airplane. All right,
so that's our Sean.
From that passage,
our audience, my dear audience.
Yeah. How old is this
How old is Sean?
How old is he?
Take a guess.
Yeah.
We're going to give you a second to think about it. How old is Sean?
Did you guess 17? Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Did you guess 14?
Oh, I thought it was 17 years old.
Did you guess maybe 10?
10. 10 years old, Mom, that's pretty young.
Yeah, well, guess how old Sean is?
7.
He's 7.
He's 7 years old.
7 years old. Before Kenneth Brooks and his fans get up in arms about this, yes, we realize that he is an intelligent child.
He's a psychic.
He's more mature than most kids his age. I don't really care. No 7-year-old in the world talks like this.
But it's not just Sean. There's other kids in the book.
The other kids in the book.
They all kind of talk like
this.
The
other 7-year-olds all talk like this. They all talk like they're 16, 17 years old, including subject matter. It's not just their choice of words. It's their emotional state and everything.
Every main character in Children of Legend has their own Kenneth Brooks stories later on. What I'm saying is Sean here. Sean has his own series of books as an adult in the Battle-Scarred main storyline. Yet, here he's freaking 7 years old and attends early elementary school.
Yeah, he's supposed to be in 1st grade.
Let's bring up some pictures of some 7-year-olds.
So this is what Sean is supposed to be, plus his 2 friends.
His similarly aged best friend is Jenna, who has her own book titled Jenna's Blood Legacy. We don't learn anything about this interesting sounding blood legacy here, but hey,
now this is Sean's story.
Yeah. There's Angela, who later on appears in Shaman Songs.
Now, Angela is 11.
Okay, that's all right.
I'll admit that Angela actually does sound kind of like an 11-year-old.
Okay.
Of all the characters in this book, I think Angela may be the best one, as far as I'm concerned.
And then there's 14-year-old mentor Scarlet. This is going to be confusing because there's actually a character in the story called Mentor, but she's a mentor, Scarlet, who probably appears in one or even many of the Battle-Scar books.
Meanwhile, this author has a dozen other works that he credits as in progress or coming soon, like he's a theater marquee. So he's a busy guy. You can imagine that Kenneth, with such an expansive universe and such legendary characters, has a vision.
Right.
He wants to tell the stories of his characters to an extent where we can see them when they are young.
So young, yeah.
Going a little off script here, I'd like to say that 7-year-olds are not that interesting.
Yeah, I can't think of many fictional characters whose lives are so interesting that I care to see them so young when they haven't developed their personalities yet. This is an example, though, of a pre-established character that then we go back and see them at 7.
I think that may be a large part of the problem.
Yeah,
I think our author may know this character so well,
and that's why he's writing him as an adult and not as a 7-year-old.
And not as a 7-year-old.
Exactly.
Like, he knows Lone Wolf as an adult.
Sometimes the fact that you don't know everything about a character is what's so interesting. Taking established characters back to when they were 7 will rarely tell you anything about a character that won't disappoint. Or, hell, won't tell you anything that you couldn't have just guessed for yourself.
Let's be truthful, folks. Not many of us do anything very interesting when we're 7.
Yeah, there haven't been a ton of really interesting 7-year-olds in the real world. Maybe Mozart.
Shirley Temple was the one I said.
Yeah.
Prodigies. Okay, and I suppose that Kenneth Brooks could argue that maybe Sean is a prodigy. But hey, if you're going to give us a 7-year-old and center a book around a 7-year-old, this kid better be a lot more interesting and likable than Sean was, because it was like kind of creepy.
You said children from the ages of 6 to 8 are still figuring out how to express themselves.
I see that you gave me like room to expand on this.
Yeah.
I have a psychology graduate study course that I did. And we talked about developmental milestones, and 6 to 8-year-olds, they have just gotten past the milestone where they figure out that the world exists without them. Okay, they're not social creatures yet. You know, they have a best friend, boys play with boys, girls play with girls at school. They're developing socially. And what we get instead here is 3 extremely creepy, quote-unquote 7-year-olds who seem like they're adults who have been crammed into kid bodies to spy on kids.
When you say 3 7-year-olds, you mean...
I mean Jenna, Sean, and Curtis.
Curtis is like the third friend.
Curtis is the third friend. He's the telekinetic.
Okay.
Who can throw shit with his mind.
He can do that, can't he?
Yeah.
Oh my god, the book like never brings it up again.
Curtis isn't featured very
No,
much.
it really
This is
isn't.
Sean's book.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that Curtis has maybe his own book somewhere?
Yeah. So how does this book live up to the idea of Muppet Baby-style grade schoolers in training? As you've seen, the author decided to basically make Sean and his friends act much older than they really are. And then, of course, we just said, is this due to the fact that psychic children are preternaturally intelligent?
No, I mean...
It doesn't really bring it up
yes.
as a plot point.
Scarlett, his teacher, she's 14 and she says, "You don't sound like a regular 7-year-old.
Okay.
No, he doesn't. But that's not the same as sounding like a creepy adult hiding in a kid's body.
Exactly.
I mean, even a really remarkably intelligent 7-year-old is still going to have some childish mannerism.
The book does start with something happening. Sean is being full-on strangled by his teacher. Sean, Jenna, and his third friend Curtis try to fend off Miss Leeks as she's driven crazy by Sean's psychic powers.
Yeah. This is, first grade. First grade. Teacher strangling
a first grade.
One of her students.
We would like to give an example of just how alien the dialogue is by acting out the section of the book where Sean's parents, Dale Carter and Sylvia Carter, meet with the principal about their first grader being strangled.
We're just going to do the dialogue, right? Like, we're doing this because actually none of the dialogue in this book seems very...
None of the dialogue. Sean's dialogue can't seem natural because none of the dialogue seems natural.
Right, okay, and I'm sorry, it just occurred to me, this episode is about dialogue.
Dialogue, yeah, exactly.
Right, I knew we were down here for a reason.
And repeating yourself.
Oh, that's right, dialogue and repeating yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
Alright, okay, so on with the show.
Our son just had his life threatened by his first grade teacher. What do you intend to do about it? We have called the police and have detained Miss Leeks. She is under arrest for aggravated assault.
That's not good enough.
What would you like me to do?
Excuse me, mister. I asked the question.
Would you control your wife, Mr. Carter? She's not property.
Direct your responses to me. Now, what are you going to do to help my son?
We are going to offer counsel services to the 3 children in the room when the attack occurred. Your son, Jenna Beckhart, and Curtis Barton. We will also pay for a hospital examination and any treatment for any injuries that have occurred.
That's not good enough.
What would make it good enough?
The trust that should exist between student and teacher, as well as the trust between parent and staff, is destroyed. What will you do to fix that?
We could have the teachers and staff take classes for sensitivity and anger management.
How about you resign?
Excuse me?
You hired that vile teacher. She didn't like my son from day one, and you were the one that hired her.
I refuse to speak to you anymore. Good day, Miss Carter.
We could go to the news about this incident. Can I just reiterate that a teacher was strangling their child?
Grader, yeah.
She, in fact, almost killed him.
Yeah. You have one more line.
Okay, all right, here's my last line. You take care of this Dale. I'm taking my Dawn down to the Springs. He needs some time with family.
Dawn? Who's Dawn?
I believe Dawn is a typographical error for son.
Maybe she means like her godfather.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
That does add another dimension to the story.
Ooh, man, get a hit out on that principal.
I just think it's very funny that, the principal and these 2 parents who, I think they may be robots from Westworld who are like learning how to interact as human beings.
Yeah, that's fair. Alright, so this is going to be our first big point. How do you make dialogue seem natural? See, perhaps we're getting an impression that this author is writing from the point of view of two angry parents and managerial principal instead of actual people that
Well,
were in the
they
scenario.
don't sound like people at all because, I mean, okay, so we've got two angry parents whose child has just been practically murdered in a classroom
and
by a
then
teacher.
This principal, who's not even named, is just kind of reacting to it in...
Like, these parents are overreacting.
Yeah, exactly.
If they would just calm down. The book is set in 2020.
Yeah, 2020.
It says 2020. So
there should be cops.
there should be reporters. The
yeah.
principal should be on his hands and knees, kissing their ass,
That's right.
begging them not to
get
sue the
sued.
school.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're going to sue the school anyway. And the parents are justifiably angry, and that should be expressed here. The principal coming back with, Mr. Carter, control your wife.
Yeah, seriously. Good
I mean,
Lord.
that's opening up a whole new can of worms right there.
Control your teacher. I think more so the point of this scene was to be a scene, not to be like an introduction to characters or anything. This was just the scene that happened.
We did mention that this scene, we only read the dialogue and not the cues and everything that went along with it. This is, despite the fact that the dialogue is puzzling in the extreme, this is one of the best written scenes in the book.
It's actually kind of like detailed, you know.
Like, we think maybe the author put a lot of effort into this, like he actually enjoyed writing this scene.
I don't even think this whole dialogue exchange was necessary. Because Sean, by the way, after all this, he stays in the class.
Yeah.
He doesn't even change classrooms. The teacher is changed, but like he goes to the same school and everything. In fact, I'm pretty sure later on they lecture him, making sure he isn't like tardy.
Yeah,
like, being injured is no excuse.
Okay, Sean gets through his attempted murder very well. He doesn't seem to have... when he goes back to school after recovering from it, he's a little nervous the first day. So nervous, he almost can't eat his breakfast.
Wow.
And then that's really the end of it. The point then is that he now has a mentor.
Are you still on the fact that you got strangled in your class? Will you just get over that? Happened like a week ago.
Grow up. You're not
yeah.
6 anymore, for God's sake.
So what I'm saying is maybe this whole exchange shouldn't even happen because it's not from the point of view of any of our main characters.
Well, that's true.
And I think all you have to do is give like 2 paragraphs that just say there was like you said, the principal was kissing their ass. There was threats to sue. There was rage and anger.
You would rather have had maybe the book stay with Sean,
exactly,
and see just how much of this he's allowed to see, which probably wouldn't be much.
Yeah, I want Sean to be flooded with reporters and counselors and
he doesn't.
And other teachers.
As a real 7-year-old, he might be confused about his parents'
and then
anger.
we could get like a scene of him like his psychic powers are hearing the thoughts of all that are around him.
And he, like a normal child, might think he had done something wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
And that it was all his fault, that, he made his parents sad. To prevent Sean from being strangled further, he is given, through a very convoluted bunch of events, 14-year-old psychic Scarlet says, I will mentor him. And she kind of becomes his babysitter through yet another convoluted series of events.
And then becomes sort of like a big sister figure for him.
Yeah, kind of.
Meanwhile, another girl, Angela, learns how to control her shaman abilities.
They know each other, like, distantly, like, they live in the same town.
Right.
Angela is the more interesting character, but her training sessions are unbearable.
Except for one.
Okay.
Except for one. During these training sequences, and even scenes that don't involve training, we get extremely lengthy, elaborately detailed explanations of the book's multiple magic systems, such as the different types of psychic ability, the magic of shamans, Nuaphor? Noafra, which does have a phonetic pronunciation in the book. That's nice, I will say. If you're going to give a weird word like that, it's nice to have a phonetic pronunciation.
Noafra.
But the info is so monotonous and is delivered so dryly that you feel like you're in a class and all the information goes into one ear and out the other. Don't you have in here?
I have some examples.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
And so.
Oh right, the Giases.
Okay.
Yes, this was so dryly conveyed that I actually forgot about this.
Well, okay, you could call it dry. I also find it quite confusing, but
Yeah.
let me run through what a Gias
You know what? You run
is.
through it. I'm gonna grab some more water.
Well, okay. Let's say goodbye to Jake for a moment as he goes to get... Wait a minute, are you going upstairs to get water? Why don't you stay down here and make your own cup and draw water from the earth?
Oh my god.
We'll be getting back to that in a moment. All right. There was a telepathic technique called a Gias. It was a form of mind control, getting a person to do something that they normally wouldn't do. There were different levels of Gias. A minor Gias would be something that wouldn't be against the nature of a person being target, just something they wouldn't do at that moment. That would be something akin to cussing out their boss or twirling around on a bus. Okay, now I don't personally think those two things are much in the same category, but anyway. A standard Gias would be something that they would refrain from doing under ordinary circumstances. Isn't that what he just said about a minor Gias?
Uh-oh.
Like defecating in public or starting a fight. Again, not the same level of behavior. A major Gias would be
Wow.
things that are against their nature entirely, like murder or suicide.
Oh, yeah. It takes some skill to attempt a standard Gias because it takes time to overcome free will and get a human to do something that they wouldn't ordinarily do in most
what
situations.
were we saying about repeating yourself?
Only the best could force a human to do something contrary to who and what they are. It was the last one that scared his mother the most. Before Sean was born, his father demonstrated to her what could be done with a Gias by making a person run full force into a brick wall. He stated that, while powerful, it was a standard Gias, as he managed to plant suggestions into the person's mind that they were being chased by an angry mob and that the wall was no there. He stated that he had never been able to implant a major Gias. He had never attempted it because of what a success would mean. It was enough to tell her that their children would never learn how to do such things. What, like make people run into brick walls at full force? That could kill
that's
somebody.
psychotic.
You could, if you hit your face into a brick wall, you could smash your nose
It's
into your brain.
incredibly cruel.
Yeah, you could lose your sight, your teeth, your tongue.
That being said, okay, so Sean's father is a psychopath.
Yeah, God.
But it's so repetitive. I mean, he says something, and in the next paragraph, he says the same stuff over again.
Do you think that was a good time for us to start talking about, well, repeating yourself?
What, repeating yourself?
Yeah, repeating yourself.
Repeating yourself. Yeah, I do.
Okay. So do we have scenes of him repeating himself?
I do. They're too boring to read. It would take forever.
Okay.
Alright, so early in the book, Sean is with his cousin, Relina. They're talking about their family and how Sean doesn't associate much with his family and how Jenna is like a sister to him and how he and Jenna look like they could be related. And then 2 or 3 chapters later, here comes Scarlet, who asks the same questions, and he has pretty much the same conversation all over again with Scarlet about his family, how they don't associate with each other much, and how he and Jenna look so much alike. And it's
the whole
enough
thing
to
all
make
over
you
again.
scream.
Yeah. And then during that initial conversation with Relena, here's a great example of repeating yourself. Relena commented, Sean mentioned. Relena commented, Sean nodded. Relena nodded, Sean added. Relena protested. Sean explained. Relena replied. Sean shook his head. Sean shrugged. Relena questioned. He shrugged. Relena shrugged. Sean nodded. She shrugged. He shook his head. Sean nodded. Relena shook her head. Sean nodded. That's one conversation!
Yeah.
I'm not even done yet. Relena questioned in response. Sean shook his head. Sean replied. Relena asked. In that one conversation, there was sure a lot of shrugging, nodding, and shrugging.
This is throughout the book.
Yeah,
Aside
exactly.
from that fairly well written, if weirdly dialogue scene at the beginning, all through this book he has very common use of the words nodding, shrugging, and shaking their heads. His characters shrug, they nod, they shake their heads.
Yeah,
they shook their heads, they shake their heads, they shrug, and they nod, and they shrug, and nod. And he's repeating himself. And he says, all through it, Sean said in response, Sean questioned in response, Sean asked in response.
Holy hell. I thought I was bad with head shaking, nodding, shrugging, sitting, standing, and responding. Alright.
It's not easy in a book to have people talking to each other and it's all he said, she said, he said, she said.
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay to use the word said. I want you to tell your said story in a second, but I want to finish this thought. At no point does he need to say in response to anything. We know we know they're responding to each other.
You don't have to say he questioned response. In fact, sometimes you don't even need
question.
If you know who's talking and who's responding, you can just have the dialogue in succession.
And you don't have to say Sean asked, if it's clear that it's Sean talking and there's a question mark at the end of it.
Yeah.
Okay, but you do have to say who's talking sometimes to make it clear, and he uses the term in response 76 times in this book.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry to shout. It gets a bit tiresome.
76 times.
And it's never necessary.
Yeah, exactly.
I can only think of one time when it would be necessary is if you've got a group of like 7 people talking and somebody says something in response to one particular person. Maybe then. A
word search always helps. Just open up your work in a word processor of some sort and do a search for uncommonly used words that you use commonly. So, like, you don't got to do it for eyes and butts and ands and stuff.
For the...
Yeah, exactly. But, like, respond, how about?
Okay.
Or shrug.
What we said last episode about having somebody read your work aloud to you, you start hearing that.
Yeah.
You will start noticing that your characters are shrugging.
A lot. Oh my God. Having a person read your work back to you, that's so helpful. And maybe a thesaurus wouldn't go amiss.
Underground Book Club will be back after this important message. Hello, hi, I'm Mort Hambone, proud owner and operator of the Saladin Paladin. In my days of adventuring, I've made a lot more friends than some people said I would. Dad! Here's my friend, Lord Soth, the unkillable zombie ruler of Sisyphus, to tell you why he loves the realm's finest salad bar.
Some salad bars add to my endless torment with fat-free ranch dressing that tastes like butt. Mort's fat-free ranch dressing is an immortal delight.
Ah, I know! Fat-free ranch dressing that doesn't taste like butt is as rare as rolling a nat 20, but you'll always feel like you did that anyway. Oh yeah, we're located on the ground floor of Penance Castle, conveniently near the Cave of the Infinite Staircase and Mount Madness. Try the Saladin Paladin. Put the salad in you. We now return to Underground Book Club.
But here, I'll tell my said story.
Okay, tell your said story.
Don't go too overboard with replacing your saids. Some saids are okay. I once showed 20 pages or so to my writers group, and in the entire 20 pages, I never once used the word said. Not once. I did exactly what I just said, and I used a thesaurus, and I got rid of every single instance of the word said. I thought I was being clever and whatnot, but one of my listeners did not like it. A total lack of the word said drove her crazy. I ended every one of my sentences with a different variation on the word said.
Okay, so you had like responded and answered and retorted and ejaculated and demonstrated.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
He explained, he conjectured. It was extremely noticeable.
All of those are nice words to use occasionally to break up the monotony.
Yeah, but
I agree.
But not every time.
But you shouldn't discount the word said. Boy, it's a good word.
It was like I was trying too hard. When everyone was conjecturing all the time, it was maybe a little pretentious. And in some places, the replacements weren't appropriate. It took her out of the story, and she edits manuscripts for a living. So if she's okay with the word said, then anyone will be okay with the word said. So don't get rid of all of your common words entirely, just shake it up every now and again. The moral of this tangent, don't replace all your salt with sugar.
I will share a similar story. My problem was adverbs. With said, I used said, but I would always say, she said, comma, exuberantly. She said, comma, angrily.
Oh,
she
okay.
said, comma, gently.
Okay.
He said, comma, flirtatiously.
That's okay sometimes.
Of course it's okay sometimes.
But not every time.
I did it consistently enough that my creative writing teacher said, stop it. She's like, do you realize how much you're doing this? Like the end of every sentence. I thought I was being... You guys, I was like in high school.
Oh, right.
I mean, but I thought I was being... Like, I was like, they said, but I'm telling you how they said it.
Right, of course.
And sometimes you don't even need to do that because the words themselves should tell them how they're being said. Okay, so we've all made mistakes.
Yeah, exactly.
But, come on, Kenneth. You gotta have somebody read this stuff to you. Was that toxic? Or are we being toxic?
No, we're not being toxic. All right. All right, so in terms of repeating yourself...
Repeating yourself?
It's important that your audience understands your world, that they understand the stakes and the characters and what's going on. So clarifying detail and explaining things multiple times is sometimes a good idea. In order to pay off what you need to pay off or to fully explore a premise. Your audience might even disregard a plot point if it's only brought up once. So, how should you go about stating something over and over without boring your audience?
Without boring my audience.
Yeah,
okay. There's tricks to this.
Yes.
And Mr. Brooks actually employs a pretty good one himself.
Mr. Books?
Mr. Brooks.
Brooks, right.
Mr.
You said
Brooks.
Brooks. You said Brooks.
He has moments. I'm not saying this guy can't write, because sometimes he writes very nicely.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
But he, like, Sean is almost killed at school. We're there.
Yep.
And so now he's talking to his cousin.
Yeah, go ahead.
Relina questioned how he knew that Jenna could heal other people. He shared his experience of the attack with her. The memory of being choked was jarring, and she almost severed the link to stop the experience. She could feel the bone in his neck snapping, and when she finally released him, when the teachers came, he was still choking because his airway had collapsed. With the gentlest of touch, Jenna placed a finger on his neck, and it felt like the pain was sucked out at that moment. He covers the fact that he was attacked, and Jenna healed him without taking us through the whole blasted scene again.
Yeah.
He makes it clear that he's giving Relina a lot of details that don't need to be repeated.
Yeah, and also he relays it with new details.
That's true. There's a nice little, like, now we're seeing it through Relina's experience.
Do you remember the show Grimm?
Oh my god.
When there's like the main character Nick in that show, and then there's like 100 supporting casts, and every single time one of the supporting casts learned something, they would tell it to two other of the supporting casts in the exact same details, and they would tell like more supporting casts the details that we already know.
Those scenes were very repetitive.
We don't need that.
Most shows know how to do this. I think they were doing it just to pad out the episode, really.
Pad out the
because
runtime.
most shows understand that, you start a scene with two people already obviously have been talking to each other, and then somebody says, and that's what happened at Nick's place.
Yeah.
And the other person says, wow, that's something.
To make sure my audience knows what's going on, I like for my characters to give a brief summary of events in their own words, or for other characters to ask for clarification. In brief, you can restate the importance of a topic, and do so elegantly that your audience won't even know what's happening.
As the author, you don't have to tell us absolutely everything. It's perfectly fine to have it say, Ted walked into the room and told Dottie what had just happened.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. Takes a whole burden off of you.
And your audience will understand that that's important.
And Dottie says, wait a minute, he had how many cans of peas? And Ted's like, no, I kid you not. He had 37 cans of peas in that bag.
Oh my gosh.
And then you can make it clear that the 37 cans of peas is an important plot point.
That was really important,
It was, and especially what happened next. So
the author has clearly been inspired by the sorts of training montages you'd see in other young adult novels.
We likened it kind of to Divergent.
Okay, yeah, Divergent, where...
Except in Divergent, we had the benefit of the people, the mentor and the student being like sexy teens.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
And that helps. When you've got a
Late
14-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
This book also it apparently has lots of inspiration from Star Wars. I know this because the book cites it indirectly for some reason, which really draws attention to the series in a really bizarre manner.
Yeah, I have a couple examples of this. I don't know why the author doesn't want to say the word Star Wars or
like
the title Star Wars.
You can say titles of stuff.
He can
in
say
your book,
Star Wars, but he won't.
but he dances around the whole Star
and
Wars
he
thing.
does it in an extremely awkward way.
Yeah.
This is Angela's grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen those sci-fi movies, the ones from the late 70s and early 80s that had a second trilogy that served as a prequel in the early 2000s.
Oh my god.
The force that they describe in that set of movies is Noefra. It is the energy that binds and connects all things together. It is what shamans channel. You can...
All right, I won't go into the rest of it. She's saying it's the Force.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
you can't use the Force. Disney's got a copyright on that. But you can say
You can
it.
say it. In fact, I even had an English teacher say you can mention brand names in your book.
And titles is fine.
Yeah, anytime you read a book that has a car in it, I guarantee the person's gonna list like the make and model of the car.
If it's important.
Yeah,
I mean,
a Chevy Cuda, you know, it's gonna be mentioned in a book. But like, it's not like Chevy's gonna be like, those sons of bitches!
we're gonna sue. All right, there's more Star Wars stuff though.
Yeah.
All right, here's what made it a little bit weirder.
Yeah, because that could have been just a grandma explaining
Yeah,
it to a kid.
grandmas might.
So
you
that
know,
could have been an exception, but,
But
here,
now we've got a completely different character.
Yeah.
Talking.
And isn't this a ghost?
Yeah, this is a ghost.
This is a ghost.
And its mentor, and she's like, well, you won't get very far with that attitude. You have to be determined, and you have to perceive that you will succeed. There is a movie where they make a good comment about the difference between doing, not doing, and the myth of trying.
Oh my god.
I think what we're driving at here is if you reference Star Wars in this kind of back-ass words way, it does nothing but call attention to the fact that you're referencing Star Wars.
It's just gonna be really distracting.
And then it makes people be like, why is he being so coy
Why
about
is he
it?
dancing around? Like, we know what it is.
We know what you're talking
but
about.
Like at first, it was just like, it was a grandma talking about it. And we're like, oh, okay, well, it
She's
was just the
a-
grandma.
You know, that's how grandmas
But then
talk.
a freaking ghost comes out and says, hey, have you ever seen that movie that came out a long time ago? Do a backflip.
Then I would like to make the point.
Okay.
All right. I'm harping on this because it's more weird dialogue.
Yeah, it's more weird dialogue.
It's not realistic dialogue. People don't talk like that. They say,
exactly.
"You've seen Star Wars, right? It's like the Force."
Yeah. Have you ever seen that movie? Like, you imagine a grandma talking to an 11-year-old. Do you remember the late 70s?
Our author, Kenneth Brooks, has a very elaborate system of psychics and shamans, and none of it is very interesting. And we know that this guy can write. He's got some very good sections of the book with great imagery.
We know he can write. He's got some damn good passages.
I mean, it's kind of like sometimes he's on fire and other times not. It's like he gets tired or something.
Well, here's some examples. Across town, a teenage girl gazed out of her window toward the mountains that obfuscated the setting sun on the cloudy day. She wondered if it was going to rain. She cracked open the window to let the cool evening air waft in. It smelled like it could rain. A chilled breeze blew in and she closed the window. It was just as likely to snow as rain. Her dark red hair partially covered in her green eyes. She glanced down at a tablet in which she recorded her innermost thoughts. She was often lost in a sea of them. The vast majority were not her own. She liked to make sure that she knew who she was from moment to moment. That is so nice.
That's pretty nice.
That is so
I like that.
cool.
She liked to make sure that she knew who she was
That's
from moment to
awesome.
moment. That's telling us a lot about
really
that
is,
girl.
yeah. Here's a nice
All right.
description of a Wiccan altar. Her grandmother was meditating in the sun. She had brought a small marble slab and set up her altar on it. In the center of the altar was a knife. On the west end of the altar was a bowl of sand. On the east end was a candle which had been lit. On the north end was an incense burner with several sandalwood cones lit. On the south end was a bowl of salt water. Each station of the compass belonged to an element. Each element brought together the energies that her grandmother needed.
That's a very nice description of a Wiccan altar, and it's interesting because it's telling us, what she uses for the 4 elements.
That's cool.
It's not like the scene when Mentor tells Angela to go get 3 different kinds of rocks, and they talk about this for like 4 pages, and then the next day Angela goes to her grandmother, talks about the same 3 different kinds of damn rocks, and they go over the same details again. This was the paragraph I wanted to bring up because it illustrates what we talked about in the last episode, which was using the 5 senses. Now, granted, it's because Sean at the time is blindfolded, so he's got to use his other 4 senses, but listen. Sean sniffed the air. He could smell the blooming flowers and the grass as if he had just dived headfirst into all of it. The natural musk of his friends and Scarlet also blended in with the smells, as well as the stone of the concrete and the faint smell of asphalt from the street beyond. It seemed incredible at how potent his other senses had become in just removing one. So,
Wow.
There we get an entire picture of a kid just breathing in the world by a schoolyard. So this guy, Mr. Brooks, he knows how to do details when he's not rushing through some really ponderous magical explanations.
So here's an interesting question. Why can this author give us such wonderful details that beautifully color the mundane, yet bore us to death with details about the supernaturally fantastical?
Well, I have an idea. Perhaps the reason this book doesn't intrigue us with the fantastical is because all knowledge of the supernatural is presented through very dry dialogue with characters teaching other characters and explaining, monologuing, and it's not done well.
No.
It's the monologuing and the teaching is very back-ass words.
You've already seen how weird the dialogue can be.
And then later in the book, the dialogue just gets really monotonous.
Yeah, exactly. Almost, we already said that almost every single line of dialogue ends with someone nodding, shrugging, answering in response. Nodding. If you have a poor picture in your head of what these characters look like, well, it's because we don't know what they look like either. The only details the author likes to give characters pertain to eye color, hair color, and age. That's it. So give us some hair and eyes.
So here's what we know. We know Sean has golden eyes and brown chin-length hair. The fact that he told us the hair's length is kind of unusual.
Yeah.
His teacher who tried to kill him, she was raven-haired. His friend Jenna, she has green eyes and reddish-brown shoulder-length hair. Curtis has blonde hair and blue eyes. Sylvia, Sean's mom, has straight red or crimson hair and green eyes. Dale, Sean's dad, has blue eyes.
Wow.
Hair color, eye color is, we don't know if they're tall or short or slender
or something
or imposing.
I do know that in some cases, weirdly specific detail does have a purpose. I know that in Japanese fiction, you often get to know a character's blood type because they believe your blood type has a correlation to your personality. So maybe the author has a connection between specific eye colors and personality? You make the call.
Yeah, you make the call. Well, if that's the case, then he needs to keep the eye colors consistent.
What?
Yeah, because a couple times in this book, the eye color and I think also the hair color switch.
Strange?
Not Jenna. Scarlett's eyes are green, and then they're blue, and then I think they're green again.
Oh my gosh.
And Jenna's eyes change colors.
Hair can change because, of course, dyeing and whatnot.
No. Let's not excuse this.
Yeah, okay.
It's not a matter of a woman dyes her hair. If this is the only detail he's going to give us about what they look like, at least be consistent.
Yeah. Let us know what's up.
Yeah. What do we have listed here as other things to tell people about? A body shape or scars or markings. Does somebody have a resting bitch face?
Right.
Do they have tattoos? Piercings? Is there something particularly stunning or surprising about their face?
Or in this case, maybe some age-appropriate descriptions of 7-year-olds, like maybe posture, attitude, any sort of distinct...
7-year-olds are like a scruffy-looking bunch.
Yeah.
They're always a little messed up, and it's kind of what's cute about them. They're never...
They might have dorky haircuts. They might have spiky haircuts.
and
One kid could always be balancing on their tippy
There's always
toes.
a girl with her fingers in her mouth.
One kid who's always kind of swaying and dancing.
But this is because we're talking about little children,
Yeah.
7-year-olds, and the book is not. It's talking about 7-year-old teenagers.
Yes, or 7-year-old adults, maybe.
Yeah.
I like the idea of a 14-year-old who wants to teach younger students how to control a power that they both share. I've written an entire book about a 14-year-old girl, so I thought the concept was cool. I was a little annoyed with how Scarlet gives Sean the nickname of Lone Wolf. Did we want to bring that up? The whole Lone Wolf thing?
I believe Lone Wolf is his name in the
actual series.
What's it? Templar Order and Chaos.
All right. Well, if that's the case, he got the name in the lamest way possible.
Yeah. He really.
Like his babysitter gave him that
his
name.
His babysitter said, "Your
See,
middle name."
I haven't even read the main series, and I'm disappointed. But then sometimes in the book, Sean and Scarlett's relationship is
It's creepy. It's extremely creepy.
yeah.
We
Okay, yeah.
postulate that maybe in the books when they're adults, maybe there's some sexual tension between them or something.
Maybe, yeah.
But the
not
way
between a 7-year-old
and a
14-year-old.
A 7-year-old shouldn't be swapping vibes with anybody.
Yeah.
Okay? But the fact that he and Scarlett, 7 and 14,
Yeah.
they have a long day where they take a trip to the pool.
Oh,
they
right.
lather each other up with suntan lotion.
We get a lot of descriptions of Scarlett flushing because of her bikini.
Yeah, Scarlett's in this bikini, and Sean notices this bikini. He's
Oh.
like, "You usually wear all black. Now you're in a hot pink bikini," and there's this undertone
It's
to
really
it.
creepy.
It's not like, "Scarlett, you always wear black, and now you're wearing pink." It's funny. It's like,
Wow.
"Bikini, huh?" And it's pink too. That's hot. He doesn't say that, but I got a
you're
very
getting that vibe.
weird
Yeah, okay,
vibe.
but then they start doing this thing during their training where they do something that psychics call the bond. The bonding, the communion.
Scarlett calls it the communion.
Oh my gosh!
And they become one.
They become one, and they do something that's so rigorous that they end up really sleepy afterward.
They pass
They
out.
pass out. Yeah, that's messed up, man.
It's a
That's
little messed up.
Come
Yeah.
on.
I'm not a prude, but that's a little disturbing.
Oh my god. Did we want to mention the scene where they go to the pool and like they're in the line?
I'm gonna do that because this is another matter of repeating yourself.
Lone Wolf nodded as they got in line. The line was starting to get long already, considering that this was far from the first power outage in the month. She sighed and waited for the line to move. A short while later, the line started to move. In the power outage, most of the people waiting in line did not have cash and couldn't be processed, so they had to leave and come back with cash later.
Considering that both of them were minors, Scarlett didn't have the problem with carrying plastic instead of cash. She had cash on her. Lone Wolf's mother would pay her back, so she wasn't so concerned with that. The line moved forward at a quick pace, but she was surprised with how many adults were carrying cash. This must have been far from the first time they had to go through this as well. Even with all of the people leaving to either get cash or find somewhere else to cool off, it would be busy.
What is this, a Dr. Seuss movie?
Hell if I know.
Yeah.
I don't know why we just spent 2 paragraphs talking about who brings cash to the pool. Who cares?
Yeah. Details, as
Is
we
it
covered
important
before. Yeah.
that we know that Scarlett carries cash?
Yeah, as a 14-year-old, she probably carries some cash on her.
Look, I mean, I'm sure we've all had this come up in the last few years where you get someplace and you realize you really could use a dollar bill and you just don't have one. You know, like the strip joint or something.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it would be maybe a funny thing to happen in a book sometimes, like, oh, I don't have cash, nobody carries cash, but here, now?
They're not bringing up a point, there's no punchline, it's just
ad
facts.
nauseum,
Yeah.
and it's like
It's just
completely irrelevant to the
very
story, and it's very repetitive.
Alright. So that's the gist of Sean and Scarlett. What about Angela? What's going on with her?
Holy crap.
She encounters a ghost in her dreams, and the ghost is called Mentor, and Mentor Ghost wants to train her too In
Teach
fact,
her how to be a shaman.
the reason Angela is training is really cool. Shamans in this world have a responsibility. The world is bridged by another world, the astral world. In places with a high population count, there's a strong, invisible barrier separating our worlds called the Gauntlet. However, in places where not a lot of people live, individuals can dream and accidentally cross into the astral world, even vanishing into the other world entirely. And shamans are like gauntlet police. They travel to secluded small towns and seal patches in the gauntlet with magic. Holy crap! I want to read that book.
Well,
that sounds
maybe
awesome.
Kenneth wrote it, you know? I mean,
Well,
it might be...
That's fair.
It could be one of the books he's written.
That sounds like Psychonauts meets Supernatural.
But we don't get that in this book.
No, we
because
don't get
what
that.
we get is Angela learning how to make a cup.
Yeah.
We're going to share with you one of the most baffling scenes we've ever read.
The dirt cup scene?
Oh yeah, the dirt cup scene where Angela uses Noafra and shaman powers to get herself a glass of water in the most aggravatingly complicated way it is possible.
So, to summarize the scene before we even read it, it's just Angela's lazing around her house. It's hot outside. She wants some water. So, because it's hot, she goes downstairs, but she forgets the water. So then Mentor proceeds to tell her about how to make her own water.
We're going to read you a summary
Yeah, a
of
summary.
this scene
Yeah, I gotta
where
get some-
I will be playing Mentor
And I'll be playing Angela.
and Jake will be playing Angela.
'Cause
And
it's two girls, so we can't help
this
that.
is, in the book, it's like 12 pages long.
Oh my god, it's
It's
seriously,
a good
really
6,000 to 8,000 words long. We're really taking it down, but this is
Yeah.
the gist of the scene.
It is very hot in this house. I gotta get to that basement. Oh, whoopsie. I forgot to bring water with me, or any source of light. Hell, I can't go back upstairs. That's too far away, and it's so hot upstairs. There's so many stairs. Mentor?
I'm here to explain what basements are for. Now, cleanse your Noafrors.
Well, okay, but I don't have any shoes. I guess I'll just have to go upstairs and get some shoes.
No, it's better to do it without shoes.
Okay. I guess I'll just go barefoot. You know, I'm still thirsty. I'm really just gonna go get that water.
No, instead of just walking upstairs and getting some water, let's make this an exercise.
Okay.
I want you to make a stone cup out of the dirt in the ground.
Oh.
And then you can fill it with groundwater that you filter through the sand.
Okay, first off, that sounds gross, but also that sounds really hard.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Hey, is that from that science fiction movies
You
that came
may-
out in the late 70s and
You
early
may have
80s?
heard of it. I don't know. Kids
Okay.
these days.
Alright, but this will take several pages of me wrestling with the dirt. Okay, here I go. Work, 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 wrestle, wrestle, wrestle. Here. Oh my god, at last I made a block of dirt. I'm gonna die.
Well, a block of dirt's not going to make a good cup. Cups are round.
Well, why didn't you tell me to make it round?
Well, I didn't think you were an idiot.
Oh my god, okay. I have to make it round. What a bitch.
Get to work.
Okay, alright, but it will take many more pages later. Okay, alright. It's round. Now, I gotta make a kiln in my head. Blast, 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 blast. Rest, mold, 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 mold. Okay, now I've got a frickin' stone cup. Hooray. I'm a powerful earth mage now. I've got amazing powers over the elements.
Yeah, well, no. You make an amazing cup. Okay, now let's work on the next 3 hours. We'll be drawing water up from the ground and filtering it through the sand.
You know what? I'm just gonna get water from the sink upstairs.
Yeah, you're right. This sucks.
Couldn't. How about?
That was magnificent. Oh my God.
Alright.
The Oscars are calling.
This whole dirt cup scene could have worked. this whole dirt cup scene could have worked if the context were different. Mentor should have just told her, "Hey Angela, did you know that you can shape the ground like a goddamn earthbender? You can cause earthquakes and generate storms," which she does. She makes it rain outside.
Yeah.
Instead, the scene is Mentor saying, "Hey, young Padawan, you ever need a cup of dirt?"
What do you have there, Brian? It's a cup of dirt. Just put an F on there and let me go. Well, explain it. Well, it's a cup with dirt in it. I call it cup of dirt. You should move on now. You should go ahead and move on.
Mentor, I need to get upstairs and use the bathroom. Oh no, young lady! You're gonna dig a latrine here in your basement.
You gotta sculpt a ball out of dirt.
And then we're gonna weave some toilet paper.
I was just gonna say, you don't even want to know what you have to do for toilet paper.
Oh my god.
Now, just in case, we gotta get a plunger made up.
Oh my god.
Okay, so, does any of this training amount to anything? No. I know we're only on episode 2, but we don't usually want to heavily spoil any of the books that we review in the future in case you're actually interested in reading them. But there's nothing to spoil here. The characters train. Our main characters meet a mysterious girl at school. What was her name? Like, New for Rabbit? Nicolila, okay.
Did you call her New for Rabbit?
Yeah. I like that name. I was trying to think of the Jabberwocky, but I just called her New for Rabbit.
Okay. I think I'm gonna have to name somebody New for Rabbit.
They play a game of kickball, and I swear to God, the book ends in the middle of the kickball game. It's not like they learn or realize anything. They don't even use their training to play kickball. It just ended.
I think this is like part 1, and there's a part 2, like,
look,
where maybe we'll learn some more.
This was released without a climax or a resolution. If we're applying a traditional 3-act structure here, it doesn't really have a third act. It might not even have a first act.
It seems to be a lot of second act.
It ends basically during the halfway point. It may not be appropriate to apply a traditional structure here, because he calls this, to be fair, an extra.
It's an extra. All right. So it's like a gift to the readers of his stories. He says, I think you want to know how Sean and Angela learned about their powers, so here's the story.
It was free.
Would be nice if there was a story.
Yeah, it would be nice. So, presumably, this book was merely for fans of the saga to get some extra insight into the characters that they've already read about. And hey, you know what? I can't argue with the business strategy here. Even if you have new people reading the book, they might be like, oh hey, these characters are interesting, now I'll buy the regular series. You know?
That's a good point. If I had been really intrigued by all of this,
you would have read more of his stuff.
I might have been like, this lone wolf sounds interesting. I'm going to go read the Templar series. Maybe.
Yeah. Or read the Druid series. He has a ton of books.
On the other hand, it is obvious that Mr. Brooks can write when he's in when he's in the zone, would you say? I think he's a good writer, or can be.
Mr. Brooks is a writing machine. Practice could fix most of the issues we brought up. He's definitely got a ton of talent and imagination. With a hefty portfolio under his belt, I imagine he's got nowhere to go but up.
Well, that's very generous of you, Jake.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
We wish Mr. Brooks all the best of luck. As I said last week regarding Mr. Benj, same diff.
Same diff.
I tried to find a way to email Kenneth Brooks, but I mean, it's not like I hire a private investigator or anything. I look at their author page. If I don't see a real easy way to get a hold of them, I figure they don't want to be pestered. So I don't bother them. So I didn't talk to him. We've got our email set up now. If he wants to talk to us, he can certainly write.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we need to bring up our next prompt. Like, what are our audiences going to have to write about this time?
Give us an example of the best character description you can come up with, your own or somebody else's. Credit the author.
Yeah.
That is like 2 sentences or less.
Yeah, 2 sentences. Next episode. What the hell is it called? Orbs of the World?
We're going to look at, what is it called? The Orb Chronicles. And this is the Winds of Change.
The Winds of Change. We are going to be talking about magic systems, tone, and the portrayal of women?
Oh, I suppose we can get into that a little bit.
Okay, a little bit. Mostly tone.
Tone
Tone is the big
tone.
one. Magic systems. Don't worry. These are the fun magic systems. Think anime.